All right. Looks like we've got a decent number of people in the event now, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Adam Crisp. I'm the Director of Communications in the Office of Vice President of Student Affairs at UNLV, and so I'm here to help organize this event for our folks in housing as well as in other offices. I'll talk to you just quickly about the format for today's discussion. Um, we will start off by just giving you some updates about things that are happening in housing, some of the programs that we're going to have, some of the steps that housing has taken to enhance safety and health and well-being, um, and uh, and then we will take some of your questions. Many of you saw where we had a Google form where you could submit your questions prior to the event. We have those questions, and we're either going to answer them at the end or we've incorporated them into the presentation. And then also, if you didn't submit questions that way, or if something just pops up and you have a question during this event, you can pose it in the Q&A feature within WebEx. And so you do that by clicking the little, it's a black circle with three dots in it. So you click that, and then it'll say has a Q&A option there. Click that, and you can pose the question. It won't post in front of everyone for everyone to see, but our moderators will be able to see it and answer your question or privately. So first, let me just introduce everybody. Go ahead and unmute everybody now. All right, good deal. So like I said, I'm Adam Crisp. I work in the Vice President's Office for Student Affairs at UNLV. We have Richard Clark. He's our Assistant Vice President for Campus Life and oversees the areas of housing here at UNLV. He's been here for a long time, and he is our resident expert and the person in which we place all of our trust and hopes and dreams. So. We have Renee Parker, who is the Assistant Director for Operations and Housing. We have Tim Sedgwick, who is the Assistant Director for Residential Life. And Heather Rappaport, who many of you may know, her formal title is Director of Development, but she's also known as the person that runs the Family Relations page. So at the end, we'll give you guys a link to that for those folks who do not know about the Family Relations page. It's a great resource to get information about navigating UNLV and becoming a part of it. Mm-hmm. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rich, and let's get started.
All right. Well, again, my name is Rich Clark. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Student Services, and housing is one of a few offices that report up to me. And I really appreciated everyone taking the time to join us today. I was actually watching the participant list. It looked like an eBay bidding scale as it kept shooting up in the last couple of minutes here. We have over 150 people joining us, so this is great. But we really want to take this opportunity to share some of the things we're doing at UNLV as we get ready to reopen. We're officially doing a soft reopening in July. Housing will be reopening clearly for this fall, and use this as an opportunity to kind of hopefully alleviate some concerns or fears that are out there, answer some questions, maybe take care of some things that may be misinformation that's out there. And then I also ask that people remember that things are still a little bit fluid too. We see that many states still have an uptick in cases, and so things change rapidly. I know I came out of an hour-and-a-half meeting this morning where we were talking about specifically COVID-19 and what we're going to be doing with staff and getting that information out. But I'd like to start by just sharing some of the things we're doing in the facilities to ensure that they're ready when students come back on the 17th, which is the first day that we'll allow for move-in. We are doing a deep cleaning of all of our spaces. We're actually contracting with a company to do what's called electrostatic disinfecting, where they're coming in and spraying all of the surfaces, both in the rooms, all of the public areas, those kinds of things. We use a high-quality filter. I've talked to our maintenance team, and we use that. All of our cleaning materials are approved by the EPA and are hospital grade. So we use those hand sanitizer units. We're going to have those in all the lobbies so that when people come in, they can use the hand sanitizer. Clearly, we're going to have regular soap and water in the bathrooms, those kinds of things. We're putting plexiglass barriers in all of our public-facing offices as one more additional measure. It's going to be required for all staff and students to wear face covering, a mask, when they're in public areas. So unless you're in your private resident room or an office, you will be required to wear a mask. So if you're in the student union, the library, a laboratory, walking down the hallways, we are asking everyone to wear a mask. and to keep that in mind. And we're doing a lot of training with our maintenance, custodial, housing teams, a lot of other people across campus about what it means to practice good health hygiene. Washing your hands on a regular basis, how to wear a mask. It's amazing when we went through the training how many people didn't know how to properly wear a mask, and having your nose exposed was not taking care of it. And the reason for wearing a mask isn't necessarily to protect yourself, but to protect those around you. And so making sure we're doing, good education there with our teams. And then of course, we're going to be doing additional cleaning in resident bathrooms this fall. At least twice going in there and doing a deep cleaning. We still expect students to do their own. I mean, this is part of growing up and the learning experience. And then some of the policy pieces for us, in the past, we have opened our residence halls the Wednesday before classes start. Well, this year we're opening up on Monday. So we're going the 17th through the following weekend. And the reason we're doing that is to encourage more social distancing. We are actually employing a company that will come in. They're called Zippy Shell, that will help move students in as they have in the past. The difference is they're going to disinfect all of their equipment before they move on to the next person, which will help move that in. But we're trying to limit it to about 200 to 250 people a day. For those of you that are returning with us or parents that are on the line that have been a part of this process, we can have 300-400 people, and the lines can get backed up a little bit. So again, we're really encouraging the social distancing. You'll also see a lot of signage in our facilities this year that say, please stay 6 feet apart. Please wash your hands regularly. Please wear a mask when in public. You will see those in all of our facilities. You'll actually see them in the union, the dining commons, the library. So it won't be just student housing that you'll see those things. The other thing that's a policy change for us this year is in the past, we've allowed students to choose triple rooms. We're not going to do that this year. We're only allowing singles and doubles for students. We're going to be much more flexible for students requesting singles. We've opened up some additional floors. So the students are really uncomfortable with the COVID-19 and do I share a room or not share a room, so that they have that as an option. And for those students that do want to share a room, we have gotten a large number of students that do want to share a room with a friend that they know really well, or it's even a sibling in some occasions, that they have that as an option. Now, singles and doubles will have a single and a double rate. They won't be the same rate. I know that was a question that was asked earlier and even before we started today. And then the other thing too is, when it comes to contingency planning for the fall, I wanted to share that we're holding 9 rooms that have private bathrooms open. We're not filling those in the fall. So that if a student does become ill, they can move on a temporary basis and use that. They can self-isolate. It does afford them a private bathroom. We're actually holding 9 of those. We also have 6 additional rooms with a shared bathroom for students that just have a cold or something. Again, it's kind of a comfort thing where we're going to be very flexible in working with students this year. For those students that do have to use those rooms, we've worked with Aramark, our food service provider, so that we do have meal delivery, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so the students don't have to worry about how am I going to get my meals. We've actually worked with Student Health Center on a couple of different things. One, doing telemedicine, where they can call and video chat with a doctor or a nursing assistant and talk through what their symptoms are and what they should be doing. And if they need to get prescriptions filled, working with our pharmacy that's on campus and is literally footsteps away from our residence halls. The other thing that we've talked at length with our health center is doing a shot clinic this fall. So when the flu shot becomes available, pneumonia shots become available, that we actually do the shot clinics in our residence halls so that students can come down and get those taken care of. And it can either go through the student health fee or it can go through their own insurance as well. So we are doing a number of things that we haven't done historically that will hopefully make the facilities much safer. We'll also mitigate any transfer of any kind of COVID-19 or just the regular flu, which comes every year. And while we always have a few cases of the flu in the residence halls, it's never been a major outbreak of anything like that. Our students have actually been very good about following those policies and procedures. And so I wanted to share some of that information with everyone today and see what kinds of questions they have. And I think at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Renee Parker to talk a little bit about some of the timelines that revolve around student housing this summer. So when am I going to be notified of my room? When can I choose roommates? When will I be notified of move-in and all of this stuff? Renee really is our resident expert when it comes to the administrative piece. She's our assistant director for operations and administration. So at this point, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to Renee.
everyone. So our upcoming timeline, I know we've had a lot of questions for the move-in schedule. So the move-in schedule will be sent out before July 1st. We have decided this year to break it up based on last name because of room selection doesn't start until July 1st. If we broke it up based on how the buildings or what your room assignment is, then you still wouldn't know until after July 1st. So we're going to be breaking up the move-in days and times based on last name, and we should have that to you very soon. We're hoping by the end of this week, and we'll send it out to everyone who already has a completed application or already has a room assignment. So the next upcoming event is roommate matching that actually did start on Monday. So all the students did receive who had an application already completed, they did receive an email for compatibility. So they could go on, answer about 80 questions about themselves, and then starting on June 15th, now they can see all of their matches. They have until June 30th to do all of their matches for roommates. If they already have a mutual roommate request from someone that they went to high school with, or they just already met someone somewhere else that they would know they want to be roommates with, they can log into their housing portal and do simple roommate search, and then they can already request each other through there. If there's any issues with that simple roommate request, they can always email those directly to our office, which is housing@unlv.edu. After roommate matching, that will start our room selection. So room selection will start on July 1st. We will send out an email with your student's start time. So it is broken up based every 5 minutes is when someone is able to select a room, and it does go in order of when we received your application. So the very first person will start on July 1st, and it will go all the way through until all of the time frames have run out. We try not to do the weekends, and we won't do the holiday just because we know people have other things going on, as well as if you need to contact our office, we want to make sure that we're available. So please look out for an email to see when your room selection time will start. And then once your student picks their room, then they will know what their room assignment is for the upcoming semester. We normally do send an email out on before August 1st of official room assignments, but you would already know your room assignment if you pick your room during room selection. Also, fall charges will be added onto your student's My UNLV account once the room has been selected. So if they selected on July 1st, the morning of July 2nd, they will see those charges already added onto their My UNLV account. And then after that, our move-in week will start on Monday, August 17th, and it will go through Saturday, the 22nd, and then the fall semester does start on that following Monday. We will be sending out that move-in schedule, as I said. If there needs to be other arrangements, you can always email our office, and we can, have a different day for you. Or if there's any other accommodations you need for move-in, please reach out to us at housing@unlv.edu, and we can make that arrangement. I think, Rich, back over to you.
One of the things I forgot to mention earlier too was the dining facilities. We are working very closely with Aramark, our dining partner. Again, they are also doing a very deep cleaning of all of their facilities. I saw one of the questions that popped up in the chat room is that, will they still have grab and go? And the answer to that is yes. You can still grab your meal, take it back to the residence hall, to your room. You'll still be able to dine in. Again, even in the pods, which is kind of like it's like a 7-Eleven on our campus, the best way for me to describe it, where you can get some items. Again, they'll have the plexiglass barriers. Their staff will also be required to wear a mask. We'll be doing regular cleaning in all of those facilities to make sure it's as safe as possible. So, but they will have grab and go. They will have the plexiglass up there. They'll be doing the additional cleaning just like we are in the residence halls. We'll make sure that everyone gets fed. And again, God forbid, but if anybody were to become ill and were to self-isolate, we would make sure that those students had meals delivered to them. They just need to notify our staff, and then we will work with Aramark to make sure that they're delivered. And then if they have any special dietary needs or restrictions, we'll work with Aramark. And Aramark's been very flexible in the past with many of the dietary restrictions. I know a couple of students that we did deliver meals to this past spring that were not feeling well. I mean, their chef actually made individual meals. So I thought that was very nice and very accommodating on their part. Adam, are there some other things?
Would you like to go through some of these questions, perhaps, and we could read off a few of these? I know you've been skimming through them as we've been going, but we answered a lot of them privately. But I'm sure these are questions that that folks have, that other folks have as well. So I don't know,
Okay.
Renee, since you've been kind of answering them and you know some of these questions, would you like to read them off? And then we
Yeah, I'll just scroll through real quickly. So there's another dining hall. Will they increase the access to take containers, and will there still be a charge? They do have a one-time charge for the container, but as long as you turn that container in, you get a new clean container as you're doing the grab and go. The other thing too is that they're looking at, while they haven't made a final decision here, one of the things that they're working on is to have prepackaged meals too that you could come in and grab without the container itself. But again, that's something that we're still working on, and don't want to commit to that just yet. The other thing too is I'm seeing, if I have a DRC, which is Disability Resource Center, if I have a particular need for my room assignment, you will need to go through the Disability Resource Center and have that approved, and we will work to accommodate whatever needs are needed. For example, if there are strobes that need to be put in the room or a particular kind of door handle, we do that. We do that at our cost. We don't require the student to pay for those things. We do everything we can to assist the students in that area. Um, and then I saw that there was a question about move-in, but I believe Renee talked about that. But move-in, it does begin the 17th. Early arrival would be on the 16th. So we do have one day early. If there are those special circumstances, for example, students traveling from overseas, or we have a large number of students that come from Hawaii or other parts of the country, that sometimes you have to take whatever the flight you can get. It's not as simple as saying you need to fly on Tuesday. We understand that, and we will be as flexible as possible. Just like Renee said earlier, please contact our office. We will work with you if you do need to arrive early. We invariably have marching band, different athletic groups that need to come back a little bit earlier. We are very flexible. We do work with that. If you are coming back and it's not an athletic team or something that's paying for that, we do have an early arrival fee, which Renee, I believe, is $30 a day. Is that correct?
Sorry. That it will be $30 a day coming for early arrival, and the dining commons will not be open on that Sunday. So there will not be any meals provided that weekend prior to move in. There was a question on here about when dining is starting. We will have more information on that probably within the next few weeks. There looks like there are a few questions about the triple rooms. So just to go over that again, all of the triple rooms, they're going to be offline. So they will not be used at all. So any room that is set up as a triple is just completely not used. Any room that is set up as a double is still going to have double occupancy. We're changing a few of those to have single occupancy. So that would be considered a single room. And then we still have our upper class complex, which is still single rooms. Anyone that is interested in a single, if you are a freshman, we normally do not give singles to our freshman students because we do encourage them, that first year experience, things along those lines. But we are doing a approval on a case by case basis. So if you do feel that you need to have a single for your first year, please email our office with any reasoning if there's a medical reason. And then we will approve that on a case-by-case basis. We have a very limited number of singles, so we have to be pretty selective of handing those out. And then the other question.
Renee, can I jump in for 1 second about those triples? I know that one of the questions that came up was if a student did already sign up for a triple, what should they do? Is there a process that they need to take part in?
Yes. So if you've already selected a triple room during our priority room selection time, so that would be for our returning residents, we are working to contact everyone starting this week to have them select a new room. Any student that may have selected it on their application, that was just a preference anyways. So when room selection opens for you as a freshman, then you will have the opportunity to pick any room that's available, which would be any double that is still showing during your room selection time. So if you already are assigned a triple, you already know for sure that you were in a triple room before, then our office will reach out to you to move to a different room.
Renee, can you share with the group the address and how they go about sending packages if they need to send packages for their student or for students that need to send those either early or that first week?
Yes. So if you are sending anything prior to move-in, we do ask that you have it arrive here after August 10th. We have a very small room where we can store items, so we just don't want too many showing up too early. But that address is going to be 1130 University Road, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89119. And please make sure that your student's full legal name is on the package. If it is here before August 15th, then we will be able to put it in the student's room upon arrival. If it does come afterwards, then the student would need to come down to our mailroom to pick that up.
Thank you.
Would you be willing to talk a little bit, because there was a question about welcome week activities, and then also I know that you've been keeping up with new student orientation, so some of these parents may not have gone through that, so if you could talk to them about how this isn't their only opportunity to have questions about housing and other things.
Yeah. Let me start with let me go back to dining real quick, because I saw a couple of questions too about, the restaurant. There was a term, the restaurants in the student union. The eateries in the student union, as well as the library, the plan right now is to still have all of those open when school starts, as well as the week before, and they're going to do a soft opening during that time. So not only will have the dining commons, but we'll have all the dining areas within the student union open at this time. So students will have some options. They can use their dining dollars in other places. The other thing, as far as socialization, will there be activities? Right now, yeah, we're planning activities, and we're working with our Residence Hall Association. In the past, our Residence Hall Association has really provided leadership in that area. It's been our student leaders that have done a lot of that, as well as some RAs doing some things on their floor. It will look different. Right now, we're being told to limit outside activities to no more than 50 people, and to encourage social distancing where there's 6 feet between them. They'll have to wear a mask, and wearing masks in 105 to 110 degree heat, that can be problematic. And so we're really thinking through, how do we do this and what does this look like going forward? So, as we've talked about this, a lot of the social programming will be in small groups, or it will be in groups outside. And for example, we do a traditional program called Block Party, which Residence Hall Association has put on. They put on programs where we've traveled to Disneyland. Will we do those things this year? We don't know. Or if we do, we may have to rent 2 or 3 buses to encourage social distancing on the buses. So we're still in the process of working through that. I know our student leaders are still in the process of working through that. There's been conversation about doing virtual, what is it called? I'm blanking on the name all of a sudden. Where you go and find stuff. Help me out, Adam.
Scavenger hunt?
Huh?
A scavenger hunt?
Scavenger hunt, thank you. So talking about doing virtual scavenger hunts that people can do in their rooms or do in their buildings. Again, they can, or could be done in small groups. So we haven't forgotten that very important part of socializing. But it will look different. It will look different. It will feel different. I know this is something that all of our residential life staff are very concerned about. I know it's something that our student leaders are very concerned about. So we're working to really make sense of this and have some things available. But to tell you what that is today, I don't have that, other than we're working on it. Some things are going to be virtual. Other things are going to be in small groups. So we will do that, because that concern about isolation is a big concern, especially by the residential life staff and students.
Heather, you want to give a little bit of information about orientation and what the parents can expect, for students and parents can expect from that?
Sure, absolutely. So throughout the summer, we are still hosting orientation for all the incoming students. It is in a virtual format, so there's a great online module that a lot of your incoming students have already completed. And then there's a module that they can do either over the computer or over their mobile phone or tablet. And then separate from that, we also have a parent and family orientation. So if you haven't come to that, we would love for you to join us. There are still 5 more options to go. They're on Saturdays. So I'll post that information in the group as well. And it's really informative. And a lot of the questions that I saw that came through were not housing related. And we answer those during orientation. So you find out about parking and special events and how to get involved on campus, academic advising, all those sorts of things are covered during orientation. So we'd love to help you there if you can attend. One of the questions, Adam, that was asked quite a bit in our list was microfridges. And I know Renee is an expert on this. And I would say from my own personal experience, for years, I thought that microfridge meant mini refrigerator because that's all I had, 25 years ago. Those are still around, but now there's this great microfridge, which Renee taught me is a microwave and refrigerator combined on a single plug. So basically when the microwave is running, the refrigerator powers down so it doesn't drain too much power on the circuit. So that way we don't lose power in the residence halls. And certainly students are able to bring their own micro fridges or mini fridges, but some of the questions in there, Renee, were about how many can you bring? And then could you bring a separate microwave? So maybe you want to share your expertise on that.
Yeah, of course. So we unfortunately are no longer partnering with any rental company for a micro fridge. So if you would like one in your room, you would need to provide your own. It does have to be the microwave and fridge combination with one plug. We do allow mini fridges on their own, but we do not allow microwaves on their own. It does pull from the Wi-Fi and cause a lot of problems and slow it down. So that's why if you do have that unit, the microwave does need to be 700 watts or less. And then the refrigerator does need to be 3.2 cubic feet or less. And whether the fridge is part of that unit or if you have a fridge by itself, it still does have to be the 3.2 cubic feet. You are allowed to have as many in the room as there are residents of the room. So if there's a double occupancy room, then you can have 2 in the room. If it's just a single room, then it would just be 1 per room.
Thank you for explaining that. And in every residence hall, there are microwaves. So if you get, like you just need popcorn at midnight, there's still a way to microwave popcorn even if you don't have one in your room. Isn't that right?
Yes, so there are microwaves, depending on the building, there's one on each floor, or there's always at least one at the first floor of each building.
And then there are some buildings that have kitchens. I know a couple of folks asked about kitchens in UCC. Do you want to just go over that a little bit?
Yes, so we do have a kitchen. There's one kitchen in each of the UCC buildings, but those are reserved just for the students in those buildings. To be in those buildings, they do have a different room type. They do pay more money to be in there. So those kitchens are solely reserved for the people living in that building. But they will still be open for next year. We are still encouraging social distancing where they're not just hanging out in the kitchen in large groups. But there are kitchens available in those buildings, and that is for our upper class residents. So anyone who would be a second year student or older.
Thank you so much. I know there was also a question in there about Thanksgiving, and this of course is a unique year, but in past years, do you want to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving?
Yes, so there were a few questions about breaks. So Thanksgiving, the halls are always open. So our contract does go from August through the time that the date that the classes end. So that's Saturday. That is the entire fall semester. So Thanksgiving falls in there. So the halls are still open. There's no additional cost. They don't have to do anything extra. The halls do technically close for winter break, but we do allow students to have winter break housing, but they will have to fill out an additional form to let us know that they need to stay. And there is an additional $30 per night to stay over winter break. And then the halls do open back up in the spring, and that will be the Saturday before school starts. And then from that Saturday, it goes all the way to the Saturday after school ends in May. So I don't know those exact dates off the top of my head, but those, so for spring break, we're also open the whole time. They always have access to their room. And one of the main questions we always get over winter break is they do not have to move any of their items out of their room. That is still their room. It's just that we're not open technically during winter break, so they won't have access to get into their room, but they don't have to move anything out. We do ask that they take their personal belongings that they may need over the break or anything of value that they just want to make sure that they have on them. We do ask that they still take that with them, though. I know there's still a few questions in here about the micro fridge combos. I have seen a few for sale through like Lowe's or Home Depot. I haven't seen them right now just because normally they're on sale right before college starts. So hopefully they'll start to show up in those stores pretty soon. Unfortunately, we cannot give you the names of the other companies that we have used in the past just due to things that have happened with those companies. We can't share any of that information.
And I know some parents have had success finding them over Amazon and other places like that. We're not allowed to recommend any companies, as she said, but we can share with you what other parents have told us they had success with in the past. And if you all are in the Facebook group, you can see there's some posts in there where parents are sharing this information to parents of juniors and seniors. There it is. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, come and join us in the Facebook group. I know a lot of you are onto Instagram and Snapchat. We're still in the Facebook because it gives us a little more ability to talk to you, a little bit more space and text. So please do join us. And there's 2 questions that you have to answer, and it comes right to me, and I'll let you in. So we'd love to have you there.
Just a couple of.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Adam. Just a couple of things too. Right before school, the universities get back to opening, typically anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. Walmart and Target run back to school programs for college students, and they routinely have the micro fridges as well. You can order them online, they'll have them delivered, or you can pick them up. I know that for a fact because my daughter goes to school in Virginia, and we did the same thing there because the school she goes to didn't have an agreement with the company. So we actually ordered it through Target and picked it up at the local Target there before we moved her into the residence halls a couple of years ago. So there are a couple other options there too.
Rich, did we specifically address the issue of self-quarantining? I saw that question come up in the comments, and I know that we've heard from others about testing for COVID-19. The direction that you've gotten from medical staff about that, if you would mind sharing.
I can address that. So at the present time, there is no requirement for faculty, staff, or students to be tested for COVID-19 to come back to work or to attend the university. In part, when we worked with public health professionals and doctors, they all have told us that's basically a snapshot in time. So if Adam gets tested on Monday, gets his results on Wednesday, but he and I interact on Friday, I could have potentially exposed him even though he had a negative result. And also because we are working with a population that is impacted differently than, say, an older population or a population has pre-existing conditions. And I'm not saying the students don't have pre-existing conditions, because I know they do. And in those cases, we have to be very careful, but we do not require testing at this time. For students in quarantine, we are not requiring quarantine unless they have traveled overseas prior to coming to campus. And what we're asking is that students will need to self-quarantine somewhere off campus before moving in. We just had this conversation in a meeting earlier today, and I met with our housing admin team literally, Renee, an hour and a half ago, I think we talked, where if a student has traveled overseas, less than a month before moving in, they will need to self-quarantine. And we work with a couple of hotels where they'll be able to check in and do that, but they will have to do that at their own expense, though. We do not have the facilities, and our concern is we want to make sure that that quarantine happens off campus, because once you come back to campus, you could potentially be exposing yourself to other students or staff. And we want that to be done before the student comes back. Now, that again is predominantly for students that have traveled overseas. If you're a student coming domestically from anywhere within the US, you're fine. But if you have been exposed recently, then self-quarantine at home. But we are not asking people to report at this time. Does that answer the question? And if not, please.
There was a question in the chat about if Hawaii is considered overseas.
No.
That is not considered overseas. It's just international travel that he is referring to.
Yes. Thanks for the clarification. Yeah, Hawaii is not considered overseas travel.
Rich, would you be able to touch on the housing requirement and if that is still being enforced and what people can do and if they're allowed to live at other locations?
Okay. So if you are a student coming into or attending UNLV and you live outside of Clark County or basically Las Vegas proper, you are required to live in the residence halls. We have a first-year residency requirement. So you still be required to live on campus. The only exception to that would be if you're taking 100% of your classes online. If you're taking 100% of your classes online, we are not going to enforce that residency requirement. It doesn't make sense to make a student move from California or somewhere in Kansas or Florida or New York when they're taking 100% of their classes online. So we are going to be very flexible in that. However, if you are taking one or more in-person classes, you're a freshman or first-time student, first-year student from outside of Las Vegas, you will be required to live with us in our traditional housing. Now, you will not be allowed to live in the U district, which is the legacy or the degree. If you're a first-year student right out of high school this spring, you will be required to live in our traditional housing, not the degree and not legacy or any other properties around campus. And I would caution people to be very careful when you're looking for housing. Go to our website because our website has everything listed. For example, the Echo, I know they tend to advertise as if they're affiliated with us. They're not. Rebel Place tends to advertise as if they're affiliated with us. They are not. But they tend to use our colors. They tend to be very loose with their language. And I know it causes problems and it becomes very frustrating for people. So if you have any questions, I really encourage you to please reach out to us.
And I would just jump in and say one of the beautiful things that we observe about the first year students who come to live on campus is all of the different support resources we have for them. So our whole goal is to get them through the first year and then on that path for graduation. So you'll see that in the residence halls, there are other students who are mentors that are living on the floors with them. That's the resident assistants, and they check on your students and help them form friendships and help with programming. The health center is right nearby where we have all different sorts of physical and mental health resources for them. And in general, we know that studies show, including in our campus, that the student success rate is much higher when they live on campus that first year. So based on our research and all of our personal experience, this is why we're working so hard to get your students on the right path.
And just to share that, our students do about 0.3 or 0.35 better on a GPA living in student housing. We also do mid-semester grade checks, which I know some students like, some don't. I know most parents like it. But if a student is getting below a C, we reach out to that student individually and making sure, hey, what's going on? Are there financial things happening? Are you stressed out? Was there a relationship breakup? Are you aware of counseling that's available? Are you aware of the tutoring or the writing center? The other thing that we're launching this year is a first generation student. So students that are first time ever going to college, we're adding some additional services there to make sure that they're successful. And we track that from semester to semester. So they do much better living on campus. I think part of that is because we are intrusive, and that's very intentional on our part because we know their primary goal of being here is to progress academically. And then, of course, getting them connected socially as much as possible. I think this year is going to be a little different in how we define social interaction. But again, we are going to do more than I would say, an average apartment complex off campus that's going to take your rent and say good luck. We don't take your rent and say good luck. And then we're also going to make sure people are fed, with the dining program and helping people out. And then again, if there's any kind of problems along the way.
And I know earlier we started talking a little bit about Welcome Week. I could just circle back to that for a second. I did see that there is a gorgeous poster that's going to the printer soon that has hundreds of events that are still going to be taking place. Like Rich said, it'll be in a little bit different format, but it's really geared to helping your student feel comfortable on campus and acclimating to this new environment. So that's a really important component about living on campus too, that all those events will be steps away, and the resident assistants will go door to door and say, hey, we're gonna go over to the student union. Let's put our masks on and we'll all go together as a group. And then students are much more likely to get involved. So it's a beautiful thing that we watch every year, and it definitely gives me chills when I think about it, because I know it's coming, and that's really the beauty of living on campus. So those events are still happening, just like Rich said, in a little bit smaller group format.
I know the question has popped up on the chat room about what about asthma, and will I be required, or is there an exception if I have asthma? I can tell you that I have a number of staff that suffer from asthma, use a rescue inhaler. They have been wearing the mask. I haven't had any of them ask for an exception. However, if there is a need there, we will need to address that on an individual basis, especially when it comes to health concerns. So I'm not an expert on asthma, but I do know, working with my team that has some of my team members that have asthma, they've worn the mask, but it may be a different kind of mask. But we'll work with you individually on those kinds of requests.
Yeah, I think for that student, I referred them to this form, which is just kind of our, if it's a question that we don't necessarily know. And I think this is a good thing for parents and for students just to bookmark. So it's just unlv.edu/students/help. And it's a great form, if you're just unsure about where your question should be directed. That goes directly to the Vice President's office here in Student Affairs. And then it goes out to 10 or so other people on the staff here who can help answer your question. So I wouldn't always say start there with that question, but if you don't necessarily start there with that form, but if you feel like you haven't gotten an answer to your question, or you're just really, really unsure about where to go, that's a great resource. And I would encourage you to use it. We just started that over the summer because so many people didn't have the ability to kind of go to this office and find out, no, that's not really where you go to find out that information. Let me send you to that next place. Those conversations weren't happening. So please bookmark that form. It may be helpful to you in the coming year. So we got a ton of questions in the Q&A. I think we've been trying to answer most of them as we've been getting them, but we may have missed a few because we've been kind of tag teaming throughout.
I'm taking a look to Adam. I can see that you all have been busy typing away trying to answer people privately too. So there were definitely hundreds of questions in here and about 50 that were submitted ahead of time. So thank you everybody for being so engaged and willing to spend time with us today. It's so terrific. Is there anything that we missed in there?
So I did see this question about how the quads sort of set up, that we saw that, somebody asked, when we toured campus, we saw that there was a room that was referred to as a quad room, 2 students on each side with a shared shower toilet between. Is that the setup considered 2 doubles? That's still going to be the same, correct? Yeah, so that would still be the same setup.
Yeah, so students may, depending on the configuration, there may be somebody in a single on one side and a double on the other. It could be as few as 2 students sharing a bathroom to as many as 4, depending on the configuration.
Another question I saw in here, Rich, I think we had touched on it, but what our plan is if there is a second wave, or if something comes up during the semester and we kind of have to close down again.
Oh, I sure hope we do not have to do that. Well, for everybody's sake. However, we do have contingency plans at the university and in student housing. If there's a second wave and heaven forbid we have to shut down for whatever reason, If we did, we are going to do the same thing we did this spring. We're going to prorate room and board so that students will get a refund, their families will get a refund. I'm actually pretty proud to say we were one of the first schools to do that nationally. We're going to make sure that if you're not paying for a service, we're not charging you for it. That's just the fair and honest thing to do. So we will continue to do those things. We'll also be flexible with helping students get moved out. We will be asking students, though, to pay for any storage that they need to pay for off campus or move their items. And then, of course, if we have an emergency situation where a student is truly going to be homeless, we're going to work with that student in particular. We're not just going to put them on the sidewalk and say good luck. That's not something we're about, and that's not something we did this past spring. But we do have contingency plans for moving people out. We would also bring Zippy Shell back to help with that move out process, and make it as convenient or as easy as possible for people, knowing that even this spring was not easy or convenient for anybody. But we will definitely prorate room and board. We'll definitely help with the move out process as much as we can. So our goal is not to have that happen. And our goal is, by stepping up all of our cleaning, practices and making changes to some policies, that we won't get to that point. And we're working very closely with public health officials, university health officials, so that we're constantly on top and getting the new information too that we will share with students and our staff.
Some of these questions, if you join the conversation a little bit late, and you don't feel like we gave you the information, it may be because we already addressed it earlier in the chat. So afterwards, it takes a little bit of time for this video to save and for us to put it in a format that you'll be able to watch. But we'll email everyone that registered for this town hall. We'll email you all a video that you can watch and play back. So for some of this information that maybe Rich covered earlier in the chat that you didn't hear, you can go back and listen to that and refer to it again. And again, if you haven't gone through new student orientation, you'll have another opportunity to talk with Renee, as well as Heather, and you can ask your questions then. So this is not a one-shot thing. And I'm also flashing up here on the screen the contact information for Housing and Residential Life. So there's the email, the website, and the phone number in their office hours. So if you want to screenshot that or take a picture of it, it's there for you.
And if you can't see the bottom of it, there is a little scroll bar on the right-hand side of your screen, depending on how you're configured, where you could scroll down and make that appear a little bit easier too. And I'll throw out one more email in case it's not housing related, and that's parents, PARENTS @unlv.edu. As Adam said, I won't know the answer to all the questions, but I can point you in the right direction to find staff that can help you with your questions.
Yeah. Adam, can I share one thing with everyone who's still on the line with us? We are also working very closely with the University Police Department. This is the first time I've had an interaction where security hasn't come up, but I want to maybe address that before people even have that question. Is we work very closely with the University Police Department, and so we are working with them to have them come in and do community policing, walk our facilities. They've done that in the past. They'll continue to do that. The other thing too is we also have student security in our facilities. Resident assistants are on duty in the evenings, and so they go through our facilities. Our facilities are locked, especially in the living areas. And so we do have an added level of security in all those areas. And then I want to address one question that actually popped up here is that, will students be allowed to go home if it's out of state or that kind of thing on weekends or things? We are allowing people to go home. We're not going to check people in and out. We're not doing bed checks. And part of that is because your exposure, anytime you leave campus, your exposure could be just as high going to a local mall as it is going home. And so we are not restricting anyone's travel. However, if you do travel overseas, we are asking people not to travel overseas because you're going through airports, you're going through airlines, your exposure rate is much higher in those particular situations.
There was a question about the cleaning of common areas. I know you talked about that. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Rich. Somebody asked, can there be more professional cleaning of bathrooms and common areas other than 2 times a semester? I think in our letter, what we were saying is that common areas are going to be cleaned constantly, and you guys have really
Yeah.
stepped up your efforts there. So definitely, and even in ordinary times, a common area in a residence hall could not be cleaned just twice a semester. It needs to be cleaned way more.
No, our facilities team, our custodial team, I think they do a very good job. And Renee can speak to this maybe better than I, but they do a fantastic job for us. They clean on a daily basis our public areas. They've been cleaning touch points, so door handles, push bars, glass, those areas that typically get a lot of contact from people. They've really stepped it up, and they've done a fantastic job for us. When we say cleaning or doing a deep cleaning twice a semester, we're talking about the resident bathrooms in their rooms. So we'll go in twice a semester and do that and do a deep cleaning. We do expect students to clean their own bathrooms. I mean, that's part of growing up. That's part of the experience. And so, however, we're going to help them out because in the past we never used to do any cleaning, or we do it once a semester. But no, we will do daily cleaning in all of our public spaces through our custodial team. And then twice a semester, we'll do a deep cleaning in resident bathrooms, hoping that residents will clean in between there. I know some do a fantastic job. Others need some help in that area.
And I'll say this is one of the things that we talk about in orientation, that part of the summer homework is please encourage your student over the summer to do their own laundry and practice cleaning the bathroom, because it's an excellent skill to come to college with. We have some students who do try to make it all the way to Thanksgiving without doing their laundry or cleaning their bathroom. So it's wonderful that we're going to have this service where someone will come in and help them, but it's great if they can come in with those skills ahead of time to be regularly cleaning those facilities.
All right. So I think, yeah, so another question about overseas meaning international travel, not Hawaii. Yeah, Hawaii we do not consider international travel.
Right.
And all right, well, so we're getting right here at the 4 o'clock hour. Somebody's asking for the parents' email address.
It's parents, PARENTS, @unlv.edu. We do have a regular monthly e-newsletter that goes out and the Facebook group. So if you send me a note, I can send you all the links so you can opt into that. We have all of your students' information, of course, because they put it on the application. And oftentimes they'll include your information, but sometimes they get like one letter off on the email. So when we try to contact you, it doesn't always go through. So we ask you to opt in with us so we're sure we have the email address that you want on file so we can keep you in the loop and keep you encouraging your students from the sidelines.
Well, I think we're going to wind things down. If we did not get your question answered, because we got a little overwhelmed there, I apologize for that. Like I said, you will have other options, other opportunities to ask these questions during new student orientation if you haven't already gone through that process. And you can always pose those questions on the UNLV Family Network Facebook page. That's just facebook.com. I'm flashing the URL on the screen right now. You can see that, facebook.com/groups/UNLV Family Network. You can ask your questions there as well. But I want to thank you all so much for taking part in this. This was kind of a new thing that we're trying out, and we really, really appreciate all of you participating and coming and taking part in it. All right. Thank you guys so much. We look forward to seeing you in the fall.
All right. Take care, everyone.